Hello everyone and welcome on board. My name is Chen and I'm a software engineer at Data Science Group. And today I'm not going to lecture you, but instead I'm going to tell you a short story. So get ready and let's start. From zero to hero with Dgraph community. Chapter 1. Once upon a time, before the COVID-19, in a far land in the Middle East, there was a software engineer. His name was Chen. His mission was to save all data scientists from the mighty tech monsters such as GitHub and Git, and bring peace to his kingdom. So he took his weapon, a map, and the enchanted book of all magics. And then the journey began. Riding on his horse, he headed to the land of GraphQL, ruled by the King Slash. After 3 days of riding, he finally arrived. But oh no, at the gate, there were lots of bugs. Luckily, League of Knights were there to save the day. After a long fight of several days, they finally won. But Spinner's son ran out of time. Chapter 2. After the battle, Spinner's son went to visit the sage, a master 507, to consult his wisdom. Told him about the fight and all the bugs and unsolved problems he had. And then a master helped him to understand how to overcome everything. So for several weeks, they worked together in order to solve the problems Spinner's son faced. Spinner's son worked for about 2 months, and he understood that GraphQL isn't the solution he needs. So he started to move forward to DQL, and he didn't know what to do. Fortunately, at the same day he changed to DQL, a magical box appeared on his desk. At the box, there was a note. Stevenson opened the box and found the community amulet. He put it on and suddenly it felt like a new power fills his mind. It felt like his brain grew and grew and grew. And now he is able to develop anything. Chapter 3. Equipped with the power of the community amulet, Spinnerson jumped on his horse and rode back to his kingdom. Then he started to work on developing ML, a version control-like system, tailored especially for GraphQL. ML is a creature with 3 heads, a CLI, an SDK, and a UI. So after a year of working, ML is finally in its alpha version. Currently, it is not public, but we will publish it. Spinoza will publish it soon. And all data scientists could live happily ever after. The end. Okay, now back to reality. As you can understand from the story, Spinoza is actually me. I'm the software engineer who developed ML, together with my team, another two developers. It was a year-long of development because we switched between GQL and DQL, and we had to implement everything from almost zero. And with the help of the community, we actually succeeded to do that in time. And now we are working to create our base users. So a little bit more about ML. ML is, as I mentioned in the story, is a system that is combined of three parts: the CLI, the SDK, and the UI and backend. The CLI is implemented with Python, built-in library, Click, and the SDK is also in Python. We developed the SDK since data scientists are more familiar with Python and have less technical skills than software engineers. So in terms of UX, we decided to give the best UX to the data scientists to work with ML. So if we considering the CLI and the SDK as the Git part of ML, so the CLI is actually really like Git, where you can create new branches, new versions, and push or pull information. The SDK gives you a little bit more capabilities and more features that can be implemented with Python and not with a CLI. So more logic that code can do. And the backend is where Dgraph taking part. Our backend is like what the part that manages the data that the data scientists index locally. And behind the scene, Dgraph is actually the database where we have the schema that I will show you soon that has all the information about branches, versions of each branch, and the repositories, the users, and everything inside each version, which is artifacts. I will show you soon what it means. And the UI part is what looks like GitHub. And let's see what it is. Okay, so this is ML. And as you can see, we have my repositories. So let's open the repository of Spinoza. And then you can see the members in the repository, how many members there are, how many branches there are, and all the artifacts. And artifacts is actually any type of file that you can imagine. Okay, so it can be data set such as CSV, a script such as Python script or JavaScript, and also we have data sets and also models, which are also artifacts, but they are not files. Artifacts can be also objects that look like a file, but not exactly a file. It's just the metadata about this file. And as you can see, we have the graph that describes the connections between each artifact. And this is where Dgraph actually works. Okay, so every artifact is a node inside the version, which also is a node in the graph. And between artifacts, we have the edges, inputs and outputs. And when a data scientist wants to investigate how a model is created, it can actually see the graph behind the research and what other collaborators in the research did in order to create a model. So here we don't have a repository that has models at the end, but it's a flow that describes how from data we splitted the train and test data. And if we want to see all branches, we also have the forest view, which describes which versions of the branch we have and also which branches we have. Each branch describes one direction in the research, and each version describes a stage in this direction. So from one stage to another, we actually can see the progress of the data science research. And if we have more branches, we can understand that one direction is finished or there is another direction that we want to research. And we can also see the progress of this direction if we will have such one. And if I will click here, we can see another graph, which has actually a model, but is not connected to anything. And we have the same data that we started from the master, and it goes through split, and then it's split to train and test data. And also I can do this from here and switch and then see the master. Another thing that I can do is actually invite collaborators. So if I will add here my team mate, I can give her the admin and the inviter. So as you can understand, it's very like GitHub. I wanted to create the same language. So data scientists will have a comfortable way to find the gaps inside the system and inside the app. And actually start to work with it. And the reason we decided to do something like Git and GitHub is is because we actually wanted to let data scientists things that that are not supported in Git, such as diffs between data that can have more than million records, and the ability to investigate the creation of a model against many versions. So if a model is appearing in several versions, we want to see how this model was created in each version, or to take models from different versions and check which data gives the best predictions from each model, which is impossible in Git, because in Git you only can be at one version of the code at the same time, and in ML you can be you can take models or data from many versions and apply it to data and models in different versions. So that's actually the UI and how it works with Dgraph. We use DQL and because we needed the transactions, and when we started to develop in GQL, there weren't transactions. It's changed now, but we had to continue back then. And our backend is like developed in 3 layers. We have the queries, which is in DQL. I will show you a little bit what happens behind the scene. So we have the backend, the server, and we have the queries in DQL, and it's separated into modules. And each module handles different kind of data. So this is like a query that describes the pull branch. And we also have the data access layer, which is where we manage when we run the queries and like return the results to the CLI or the UI. The backend speaks with both of them. And we have our schema with all the artifacts, branches, memberships. Everything is managed by by DQL, by GraphQL. Sorry, by Dgraph in DQL. And on top of it, we have the API, which is developed with Django REST framework. And there's an authorization layer, which is developed with Auth0 and JWTs. And we also have the UI with React. It's a React app with TypeScript. And another thing that we have is the CLI, as I told you, and the SDK, which will be open soon and become an open source. So if you want to join us and develop it, you will be able to do this soon. And the backend of the UI also will be published, not as an open source, but the UI and the app will be published soon. We are currently finishing the alpha version and starting to test it in our with our base users and inside the company. And when we finish that, we actually will release the beta version and then the first version for everyone. It will take us, I think, about 3 months in order to reach this destination. And that's it, actually. That's what we have currently. And one last word before I finish the lecture is why I did this lecture. The reason I did this lecture is because it was important to me to tell you how much the community helped and how much is important for me and others to have a strong community of developers who can share their knowledge and can solve problems together inside the community and then help each other to actually get along with the technology that Dgraph developed. And I encourage you to also participate in the community as much as I did actually. I participated a lot and helped people and got help from other people, and that's how I actually managed to overcome all the problems and all the challenges I had, especially when I switched between GraphQL and DQL. And that's it. So thank you for listening, and you can find me in LinkedIn, in my email, and also in the Graph community as Finansan, as you can probably understand. And thank you very much again, and see you in the Q&A. Bye bye.